What killed Slam? It's 3 years old, so like maybe Slam was dead then, and I wasn't in the Slam at that point. So like, who knows? I'm new to this shit. Maybe Slam is dead, cause I never heard of it until recently, and now I'm in love with it.
Okay, now I'm cooking.
In comparison, this new style of slam is very safe, very accessible, just not interesting to me at all. It's like non-alcoholic vodka. What's up, everybody? I'm Finn McKenty. This is the Punk Rock MBA, and welcome back to my What Killed the Genre series, where I usually look at genres that have fallen off in terms of commercial popularity, and I try to figure out what happened. But this one is going to be a little bit different, because I'm here to talk about a genre that basically never had any commercial success and still doesn't, and that is slam. And if you're not familiar with slam, basically what that means is bands that sound like this, or this. Slam is actually more popular than ever, where popular means that it has like a solid, engaged underground following, but at the expense of everything that made me love slam in the first place. Basically, what I hear a lot of people call slam these days is very clean, safe, sterile stuff that sounds much more like deathcore or death metal than what I would have ever thought of as slam. And yes, this is me being a slam hipster. I'm very aware of this. This is me being like the real emo people who say My Chemical Romance ruined everything, and that stuff you guys listen to now isn't real emo. Why don't you go listen to some Cabin Jazz and Braid, Modern Baseball? And one quick note, there's unfortunately a lot of misogynist stuff in this genre, which I really can't stand, and I want to be super clear that I definitely do not support any of that. So if there's a band that you don't hear me mention and you're wondering why, that could be the reason. So, I don't know, call me an SJW if you want, but that's how I feel. Before I get into it, I want to quickly plug my Instagram. I've been posting a whole lot more on there lately, so if you like this video...
I mean, a lot of the heavy music that I've listened to growing up, I mean, I don't think it would be considered slam, but like I used to listen to like Whitechapel and shit in high school, and like they were talking about cutting women with chainsaws and stuff. Like that's definitely, I think that's over the line of misogynistic, like pretty far past the line of misogynistic, and like raping people and shit like that, you know. But like, I don't know, I don't support that stuff, but it makes good music. That's just me, man. Music's music.
Video or any of my other videos, I would love it if you give me a follow over there. There's a link in the...
There's bands out there that it's literally like slam music or deathcore or just fucking people banging on trash cans, and the vocalist is a parrot. What are you gonna do then? Huh? There's a band out there whose vocalist is a Rottweiler. Or a pack of Rottweilers. I forgot what they're called, but I've showed them to my girlfriend quite a few times, and she can't fucking stand it. And that shit's so fucking funny. I'll have to look it up soon. We'll do something about that soon. It'll be really funny. But yeah, there's one with a parrot as well, or a bird, or like a flock of birds. And it's just you could do anything and people will listen to it. That's how it is.
The description. And one last note, I want to give a shout out to Brad Fincher from Devourment for helping me brainstorm and fact check some of this. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. Part 1, the Liege of Inveracity riff. Ever since I first discovered metal and hardcore back when I bought the Suicidal Tendencies Lights Camera Revolution album, I was always looking for something more extreme. Something heavier, faster, more brutal, more aggressive, just anything that was more extreme. And this was the early 90s when obviously we didn't have streaming, so discovering new bands or genres was mostly trial and error. You'd basically buy an album based on a hunch because you heard their name mentioned in an interview or in the thanks.
Finding new music when I was a kid was fucking ridiculous, man. I had to, like, there wasn't like streaming per se, but I had to like pay a kid like $10 to get like a burned CD of something that I found on like Fuse or MTV2, like one song that I liked, and I was like, hey, that sounds pretty good. Maybe I'd like the whole CD, and I would shovel out $20, $10-20 to like the local goth kid, and he would get me like Taking Back Sunday, Story of the Year, stuff like that. And that's how I found my music, and it was hit and miss. Sometimes he'd be like, oh, I threw a couple extra songs on at the end. I'm like, why don't you just put fucking 30 songs on the CD for me and I'll give you $10 for it? But nope, he would never do it. He would only do like 13 songs for $10. I'm like, all right, dude.
List on an album you like, maybe you saw the sticker on someone's guitar, or maybe just because they had a cool name or cover art. I discovered some great bands like Sepultura, The Accused, Morbid Angel, tons more. And I loved all those bands, and I still do, but it wasn't until I bought Effigy the Forgotten by Suffocation in I think 93 or 94 that I finally heard it. The sound that was in my head, but I'd never actually heard before. And I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that there was one particular part on that album that changed everything for me, which is this one riff from the song Liege of Inveracity.
Ooh, I never heard that.
Pretty slammy, right? As soon as I heard that, I was hooked. I wanted a whole album that sounded like that.
I want a whole album that sounds like that, and I want to listen to it for 14 days straight. Right? It just... Yes.
Oh, wait, fuck that. I wanted a whole genre that sounded like that one part. And in fact, if I had to point to one specific moment as the birth of slam, it would be that exact part. Because I think there were thousands of people all over the planet who had the same experience I did and started their own band with the concept behind the band being basically all our songs will sound like that one Suffocation part. And that's why I point to it as the Adam and Eve of slam. Part 2. What exactly is slam? Before I move on, let me plant a stake in the ground and very specifically define what slam means to me. If you have a different idea of it, that's totally cool. Like I said, I'm not trying to force my opinion on anyone. I just want to be super clear about what I'm talking about when I personally say slam in this video. To me, these are the defining elements. First, slam riffs, obviously. I'm talking about those slow, chuggy, palm-muted power chords with lots of chromatic notes and pinch harmonics. For example...
that sounds good, but it sounds terrible at the same time. You know what I mean?
The vocals.
Like, I can't stand that type of slam music. I can't stand that type of music at all. When people have the worst production, it just makes it so fucking hard to listen to. Like, if that had, like... any type of production mixing on it that was like top tier, like that would sound insane. You know what I mean? Like the vocals would be smoothed out. Like it would just sound better, you know? Like, but the production makes it sound like it's in like a tin can, or like someone recorded it on Audacity from their laptop in 2011. Like, I don't fucking want to hear that shit. I want to hear stuff that people put time into and that they paid and that they were able to get good production out of, because like that's what's going to make people listen to it more often. So maybe that's why people say like someone said I listened to Poser Slam like recently. Like maybe that's why they say I listen to Poser Slam, because it's not fucking, that doesn't sound like someone's banging on trash cans and just going into the fucking microphone, but people actually spent money or went to an actual studio and recorded a real CD and it came out really fucking well. And it borders the line of something else. Like, fuck it, dude. I like that shit way more though.
It has to have those ultra guttural gurgling vocals.
I was about to say gutturals. It needs gutturals. That's better production. Still not great.
There's no highs, there's no growls, and obviously there can be no cleans. And speaking of which, let me also spell out the things that slam does not have in my definition of it. First of all, no skank beats ever. This is a skank beat if you're not sure what I'm talking about.
See how it can be a skank beat.
No solos, no sweep picking, and no tremolo riffing ever. And this, for anybody who's not sure, is a tremolo riff. If the guitarist is doing any of that stuff, it's just death metal, it's not slam. Also, no breakdowns. Don't get me wrong, I love breakdowns as much as the next guy. Probably actually a lot more than the next guy, but they aren't slam. And I also love Ariana Grande, but she isn't slam either. And lastly, although not, I guess, strictly a requirement, to me, slam is also defined by two more things. First, the production, which I guess we could charitably call raw, but I think most people would just call awful. And I guess objectively speaking, it is awful, but awful in a way that sounds great to me for the genre. For example, I think this sounds fucking great.
That sounds terrible. That sounds horrible.
And last but definitely not least, the
I'll take new slam mixed with some rest. Me too.
For example,
I've heard this. Short bus pileup.
Again, this is my admittedly super specific definition of the genre, and feel free to disagree, but now that we all know exactly what I'm talking about when I say slam in this video, let's move on and talk about how it came to be. Part 3, Proto Slam, from roughly 1991 to...
Never heard of Proto Slam in my entire life. In 1991, I was 3 years old. Sue me.
1995. Like I said, although Suffocation were definitely the best known band playing this style in the early...
I do want to check some of this stuff out, though. You know what I mean? It kind of makes sense. Like, if I like the newer stuff, I'll probably find some stuff in the older realms that I'll like too. You know what I mean? Abominable Putridity. Putridity is my favorite Pure Slam band. We'll have to check them out. I will do a blind reaction to them, and I'll post it this week. And it'll be cool. Just for you, Primus. I got you. I'll do an old one. If it's older stuff too, like, I'll do it.
90s, they certainly weren't the only ones. So first of all, along with Suffocation, there were a handful of bands from Long Island doing roughly that same kind of style. And I was very into that New York death metal sound because back then it had that bouncy, slamming kind of groove that really nobody else was doing until True Slam came along. The most notable bands in that kind of scene, in my opinion, are
True
Internal
Slam.
Bleeding,
Vocals are terrible.
and Pyrexia.
Fire. That's heat.
And if you're into this sound, there's a bunch of other Proto Slam New York death metal bands of that era you might want to check out, such as Skinless, Baphomet, Afterbirth, and Dehumanized, among many others. This scene had so many great bands in the 90s. And of course, I also have to mention Dying Fetus, who had some very slammy parts like this one from their 93 demo.
I'd
and
probably
lastly,
like
Disgorged from San Diego, who are so ahead of their time. I mean, listen to this, and keep in mind, this is from 1992, a quarter of a century ago.
1992. I was 3, 89, 90, 91, 92. I was 4 years old, dude. Sorry, guys. I'm fucking toasted right now. I was 4 years old when this shit came out. Wow. Wow. Losing my mind.
So there were all these bands in the early to mid 90s flirting with slam that had some slam parts here and there, but it wasn't until the late 90s that what I would call true slam came into existence. Which brings us to part 4, the birth of true slam from roughly 1996 to 2000. Essentially, there were a few bands scattered all over the country who had the same idea that I did of, hey, wait a minute, what if we made a whole band that sounded like that one part in Liege and Veracity? Only, unlike me, they actually got off their asses and started a band. Repudiation from Long Island were the first band that I heard to do truly pure slam. I remember getting this demo at the, I think, 1997 Ohio Death Fest. Internal Bleeding played that one, and I think their guitarist Chris recommended it to me because I have this really vivid memory of someone saying to me in a super thick Long Island accent, "It's fucking brutal, bro." Which it
I'm getting tired of hearing pure slam right now. Vocals are terrible.
And then there was also Deprecated from San Diego, who didn't have the straight up girl.
Does anybody want to make a pure slam band with me then? Like, pure slam band? We should make a band that is in quotations, pure slam band, and that's the name of the band, in quotations. Like, the whole thing. And then we make it so you could barely fucking read it, and then, like, it'll just be all this music, and then I'll just go... I'm telling you, dude, we would fucking make zero money.
Vocals, but were slamming pretty hard. And you may know their bassist Derek Boyer, who went on to be in Decrepit Birth, Deeds of Flesh, and Suffocation, among many other great bands. This was his first band. I think they were like 17 or 18 when they did this demo, which is pretty amazing. We should make a band called
something Flesh. Don't judge me, Primus.
But definitely not least,
I'm
the
just
band
having a
that
good
put
time,
Slam
man.
on the map,
I'm just having a good
If I was to
time.
point to one song that's the template for modern Slam, it would be the song Baby Killer from their album 138.
You can show that on YouTube. Decapitated guy with his wiener out.
This was Slam's first hit single because, I mean, how fucking catchy is this song, right? It maybe wasn't as absurdly brutal as Repudiation, which was just so heavy that it's one small step from straight up noise, but what they gave up in terms of brutality, they made up for with the catchiness. This is like the Hit Me Baby One More Time of Slam. You just kind of can't help but bob your head to it, right?
One more
and it
time
actually
of
even
Slam.
kind of has a chorus with a few words you can understand. They put all the elements together into one neat package in a way that nobody else had to date. They laid the blueprint for Slam, people from all over the world noticed, and it opened the floodgates for what to me was the golden years of Slam. Which brings us to part 5, the golden years from 2001 to maybe 2010. I call these the golden years because for a while there in the mid-2000s, it felt like I was discovering a sick new Slam band like every week. I can't list them all, so as I always say in these videos, please don't be the why didn't you mention this band or that band guy. But here's just a few of the most notable ones. First of all, there was this whole crop of really fucking good Japanese bands like Gorevent, Vomit Remnants, Rest and Gore, and my personal favorites, Disconformity.
Rest in Gore.
And over in Europe, there are quite a few great bands as well, some of which I'm not going to name because they get a little bit too misogynist, but definitely check out Defeated Sanity as one example of this, especially their album Psalms of the Moribund from 2007, which is just premium Slam.
In 2007, I was in high school.
And speaking of Europe, of course, I have to mention Epicardiectomy, who got a lot of attention for their Mountains of Death video. If you've ever heard the Let Me See Some Hammers meme in the comments or whatever of a Slam video, it's from this video, and I would definitely recommend you watch this whole thing because it is just amazing. Bordering on unintentional performance art. And then there's all the Russian stuff like Catalepsy and Abominable Putridity.
There you go, bro. We're going to listen to that.
I want to pause really quickly to highlight something. You'll notice.
We're going to listen to that soon, bro. That sounded so good already. Oh, you saw my face when that came on. Abominable Putridity. It took a second for it to click, and I was like, oh, that's it. That sounds good.
That this Russian stuff sounds a lot cleaner, a lot more death metal than the other stuff I played. That is why I personally didn't like it as much, but more importantly, I want you to just make a little mental note of that, file it away, because I'm going to come back to that in a few minutes. But in my opinion, there were two bands that really stood out as the cream of the crop of the new wave of Slam. First, Cephalotripsy's 2007 album, which I absolutely fell in love with. This is a really interesting album to me because it goes beyond even quote-unquote brutal. It's so over the top that it goes into this like weird parallel dimension that's almost like avant-garde art music or something. And here's what it sounds like if you haven't heard it. Hold on a minute. Can we just take a minute to talk about that Cephalotripsy snare? That is like the perfect Slam snare. I love that snare so much. My friends at TuneTrack, please, for the love of God, make a Slam library for Superior Drummer. And that library, all it needs to have in it, it needs to have a kick drum, it needs to have that snare, and maybe like 7 or 8 chinas and ice bells. And second, in my opinion, the single best release of the whole new wave of Slam, Cerebral Incubation's second full length from 2012. I could tell you why it's so good, or I could just play a clip and it should be obvious to you.
Oh, that snare. The snare. Ooh.
Basically, it's like cephalotropy on meth. It's that same putrid, ultra guttural vocal style. And oh my god, the guitar tone. I don't think anybody will ever beat this in terms of that super scooped Jun Jun kind of sound. It's just perfection. Which brings me to part number 6. Why Slam was special and interesting. If you've ever heard interviews of the early black metal guys, you probably remember them talking about how death metal had become boring to them because it was overproduced, because it emphasized quote unquote being technical, that it had lost the edge and aggression that it once had, and that the rawness of black metal was a reaction to that. Now, I'm not a huge black metal fan, and I actually do like a lot of the modern death metal that those guys didn't, but I kind of agree with them. There was a massive glut of generic, formulaic death metals in the 90s and 2000s that was boring and, well, just not heavy. And what really turned me off to the whole genre of death metal for a long time was the melodic death metal mega trend that started in the late 90s. It was way too clean and non-threatening, and just, to me, the whole idea of melodic death metal at all is a total oxymoron. To me, melodic death metal is like saying non-alcoholic vodka. It just makes no sense. Like, those two things don't belong together. What it comes down to is that Slam appealed to me for all the same reasons that early black metal was appealing to other people. Because it was raw and nasty with the aggression of hardcore, but with the heaviness and speed of death metal.
Here right now,
to me, it was the exact opposite of melodeath, where that stuff was so accessible and friendly that people who didn't normally fuck with death metal at all were getting into it. For example, all the guys who went on to start the metalcore bands of the 2000s, Slam was so out there that even metal fans hated it. And just to make this contrast super, super clear, let's compare this
still pretty heavy. Not as heavy as that, goddamn.
And I don't know, maybe this makes me a hipster, but as I've said in some of my other videos, if a new art movement comes along that the established artists hate and talk shit on, I'm always interested, because that usually means they're doing something unique and interesting and innovative that years later we'll look back on as being really significant. But as always, the brightest flames burn out quickly, and that was the case here too. That nasty, raw slam that I loved started to be a lot less common, and the genre began to turn into something much closer to deathcore or brutal death metal. Which brings us to part 7, watering it down.
Sick,
a few minutes ago, I mentioned the Russian bands like Catalepsy that were referred to as slam, but to me were cut from a different cloth. They had noticeably cleaner production than the rest of the genre. The drums are programmed and sounded like your standard quote-unquote metal drums, and their vocals are often more in the death metal or deathcore growl side of things than the ultra guttural gurgles of the...
I know this video was made, what, 3 years ago? 2019, but in this day and age, dude, you need to have production, no matter what. No matter what anybody says, dude, if you don't got production, nobody's gonna fucking listen anymore unless you're like fucking crazy. If you're a psychopath, you're gonna listen to fucking people bang on trash cans and brie. But not for me, dog. It's gonna be a no from me. But like, you gotta have production. Like, at the end of the day, dude, if you're not in the studio putting the time and effort and putting your money into your product and that you want other people to listen to, then nobody's gonna listen to it, because it's just like, there's so many industry plants out there and so much overproduced music that's all people know. So like, if you're not produced like in a certain way, like, people aren't gonna listen, you know? Like, I don't know, like, that's why Lorna Shore came out so hot with Into the Hellfire or whatever, In the Hellfire, because it was produced right for the first time in their existence. First of all, everything else that I've heard from them before, that was so muddy sounding, that they produced that right and made his vocals just a little bit louder than the song because they wanted to show off his vocals. And now look at them. People are looking for that right now, like 100%. They want fucking talent. They want people that sound different when it comes to vocals. Every vocalist sounds the same around this type of music. So when you find someone like that, it's fucking awesome. So I can see why they blew up. So like, yeah, you gotta have some type of production on it. People don't want to hear fucking echoey fucking dog shit fucking snare and dog shit cymbals and like fucking vocals you can barely hear. Like, people want to be able to enjoy that shit in their cars. Like, I know I do. Like, when I listen to stuff through speakers, I want that full sounding stuff that passes through both sides of me, like, and it just sounds so, and it just goes through my bones. Like, I want that type of fucking feeling, you know? If you don't want that, I don't know why you're listening to music, because you want that in any genre. You want to be able to feel that shit.
The true slam bands. I noticed that this style was getting a lot more traction than anything else in the slam genre, especially with the deathcore and metalcore kids, and of course I totally understand why. It addressed the two most common complaints with slam, which are the vocals and the production. And really, it wasn't that different from Carnifex or Whitechapel, just with more slam riffs and less breakdowns. But the specific moment where I think slam started to become chorified is when Waking the Cadaver went semi-viral with the misheard lyric video for that one song that I'm not going to name, but you probably know the song I'm talking about.
Is that song? I'm not gonna name it. Oh, god damn it! I'm not gonna name that song.
It doesn't hurt me.
What just happened? Punk rock slam. Okay, so. Now I forgot what else.
I know the song I'm talking about.
Okay, so did Waking the Cadaver is Waking the Cadaver slam? Little slam. So then I've liked slam. I used to listen to this band in high school. So then I used to listen to slam in high school. Fuck all y'all. Fuck everybody who says that I didn't like slam or I listened to Proto Slam. I used to listen to Waking the Cadaver when I was in high school. Y'all can suck my balls. Fuck it.
Which one? The hardcore and deathcore kids love this, and of course I completely understand why, even though I personally think that Waking the Cadaver are absolutely terrible. It had all the stuff they were familiar with, like inhales and tremolo riffs and breakdowns, but it also had some admittedly pretty sweet slam parts, and even a funny video that they could share with their other friends from middle school on MySpace. And that was the genesis of the slamcore subgenre, which is basically deathcore bands throwing in some slam riffs, with Ingested being maybe the best example.
Ingested, might be seeing them soon. Pretty sure they're still around.
To me, it's way too clean, with the sample replaced, inhuman drums, everything edited perfectly to the grid, the slick, polished production and the deathcore vocals, and a lot closer to what I thought was the boring, generic death metal of the late 90s and early 2000s. The bands that didn't go in the slamcore direction went in the brutal death metal direction, with non-slam stuff like breeze, tremolo riffs, and skank beats creeping back in, and only a few slam riffs here and there to make it really at all slam. And there's zillions and zillions of these bands. Vulvodynia is a big one, but probably the best example of it to me is Extermination Dismemberment.
Oh, I've been listening to them. They got a crazy fucking video out.
And if you like this stuff, there's easily a few hundred more bands like this on the Slam Worldwide channel, so check that out. And also, props to them for just tirelessly promoting the genre for years and years and years. He's done a lot for Slam. But to me, this style is just
Slam
so
Worldwide,
shout
out Slam Worldwide, hooking me up with fucking crazy music.
Where
oh my god, I love you, Slam Worldwide.
It feels like they're just barely holding it together, and I'm sure if you took that session into Pro Tools or whatever and you looked, it's just not even close to on the grid. And by comparison, this new style of slam is very safe, very accessible, just not interesting to me at all. It's like non-alcoholic vodka. Which brings us to part 8, present day. To be honest, slam is almost certainly more...
That's the second time he's used that analogy in this video, so like I feel like he had nothing to say at this point. That's just me. I really like this channel though. Shout out Punk Rock MBA.
Popular than ever. It's just changed form in a way that I personally don't care for. So though slam may not officially be dead, in my eyes it's dead, at least creatively. So I could end this video by saying that it was ruined by all the new bands that didn't do it right, and things were better back in my day, and blah 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 blah. But as you should know by now, if you've watched any of my other videos, I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be the guy to say that it sucks because it's different from how it was 10 or 15 years ago, especially because I'm probably one of like 5 people who actually liked it better, and when all the recordings strings sound like shit and the snares sounded like they were sampled from Saint Anger. So instead of doing that, instead of being that guy, I am going to choose to look at this in another light. Instead of being upset that new bands came along and changed it, I'm going to be stoked that slam has finally gotten the attention that it deserved. It's never going to be a commercial genre, obviously, but it's definitely bigger than it ever has been, bigger than I ever thought it could be. I would rather be stoked on how fun and exciting the prime years of the genre were and recognize its biggest contribution to the world of metal and hardcore, which is the slam riff. Because let's be real, even if that's the only thing slam gave to the world, that's a pretty fucking solid legacy, right? Because there are very, very few things in this life better than a great slam riff. All right, guys, there you have it. Those are my thoughts on what killed slam, or more accurately, how the genre changed over time. Because, like I said, it's actually different more popular if you think about it, man. It's just changed into something that, to me, no longer feels like slam. But you know, I'm already starting to sound like an old man screaming at the clouds, so I should probably just quit while I'm ahead. And I should turn it over to you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. What do you think about the difference between the old slam and the new stuff? I would suspect that most of you guys probably think the old stuff just sounds like shit. And
he's right about what I'm going to say. The old stuff sounds like shit and the new stuff sounds better, but that's because I like production. But that's just me, and there's still going to be people out there like him who likes this type of stuff, and that's cool. But, you know, like, I just want to feel, like I said, I like the production. I like people who put the time and the effort into their craft, and they put the money into what they do. But like, if you choose to put yourself out like that, just know that, like, you know, you're cutting off a lot of people that are just going to immediately turn it off. That's just how it is. If it's got better production, I'm more likely to listen to it. If the vocals got good production and are mixed well, I'm going to listen to it more often than not. That's how it is for me. Vocals over everything. I got to have the vocals right now. This is how it is. But, you know, slam's cool. Slamming, deathcore, slamcore, deathcore, any type of slam. Like, I've really enjoyed it. But since I've been enjoying slam so much, I think that I will end up getting into some of that shitty sounding slam, you know what I mean? Because it's going to, I don't know, like I said, like I've said in a couple of my videos now, like, since I've started this channel, like, I didn't really like a lot of this music when I first started. I liked more hardcore. I really like Straight from the Path, Stick to Your Guns type stuff. Like I really was into that type of stuff, and I've always been looking for that harder hitting type music. And like, for some reason, like, I ended up stumbling upon Slam Worldwide and slam music and all this slamming deathcore, whatever you want to call it, and I fucking love it. So, you know, maybe slam isn't dead. Maybe slam has changed, but it's not. I don't think it's dead. You know, I don't think slam's killed. I don't think anybody's killed slam. I think they've changed it, and now you still got those bands that like doing the raw, like, basement type fucking record on your computer through Audacity with this shitty ass microphone from across the room, and we'll put a sock over it type music. And then you like the people who like the production, like me. So maybe it's not dead, it's just changed, and I think more people are gonna get into it. And I think me liking the production stuff, like the stuff that sounds good, is gonna lead me into certain paths, into other things that, like, he was talking about, like ingested, how it, like, they said they started the change from slam into, like, the mix it up into more death metal stuff. Maybe that'll help me, you know, get into more slam stuff, and I'll end up reaching that stuff. I don't know. That was a cool video. I really like Punk Rock MBA. He's really interesting. He's got some good shit, and I'm glad I got to watch this.